All right, we're still struggling with this oneg as being the representative of the sechel of the sechel, and that causing the effect of on the ratzon. We actually turned the page, but I want to go back because I see that this is still requires some clarity and reason what's behind this. So the Rebbe says that because principally ratzon is a koyach makifi, which does not become imbued in koyachos pnimiyim, and therefore, even when one is involved in haskola and he reveals his sechel, this should not have any effect on the ratzon. Even though the ratzon is what initiates the kuli of the sechel, what forces it out, but it doesn't get affected by it because ratzon is above it. The initiation of the becoming ratzon is from top down type of uninvolved the ratzon part. Yet we see, as the Rebbe points out, we see, practically speaking, that after a person goes through a great haskol, which is initiated by the ratzon, after that he goes through this haskol, his ratzon becomes very enabled, excited, and it affects his entire person. The person becomes merutza. He becomes very, very well disposed. Now, in other words, he has a pleasant disposition. The ratzon affects is completely affected as a result of this kuli of sechel. So we see that the sechel even does have the effect on the ratzon. So the Rebbe explains, however, that this inyan, that the haskola affected ratzon, is not really directly from the haskola. First of all, the ratzon itself is also not fully activated because it's from asa merutza. It does not bring about any kind of particular ratzon that he should pursue something. Ratzon means he pursues something. That is not what that is the effect that we are referring to. Nasa merutza, he simply has a good disposition. It becomes a pleasant personality. This is not ratzon. Ratzon is when one pursues a certain aim, a certain purpose. This is not affected by the sechel. The effect on the ratzon is only that he becomes more acceptable, more accepting. However, the Rebbe says that even further, even that itself is also not affected by the sechel. Rather, it is affected by the oneg in the background of the sechel. The oneg is mamsheh the ratzon, not the koiches themselves. That's the last line on the two lines before the last on the previous page. So I wanted to. This is when ratzon, the oneg, all of a sudden gets involved. So I wanted to explain how did oneg get intertwined over here all of a sudden. Although we explained because ratzon, sechel is based on ratzon. Sechel is based on oneg. Sechel is revealing what's in the oneg. But what is the parser? Why is the oneg so influential? Why is it important that the oneg is what affects the ratzon rather than the sechel? And oneg, on the other hand, is like a makifi. Why is the oneg that comes through sechel instrumental in bringing out the ratzon, in strengthening the ratzon, and that makes sense. Even though the sechel itself does not have an effect on the ratzon. What's the difference? This is the oneg. This is that is the background of the sechel. If this is the oneg that's the background of the sechel, so why can't the sechel itself also have an effect on the ratzon? And on the other hand, the ratzon says oneg is mamshich as a ratzon. The oneg draws out in the ratzon, not the koiches that are created by the ratzon, but by the oneg. Not the koiches are created by the oneg, but the oneg behind these koiches. What's the difference? The explanation is this. We spoke earlier when the Rebbe mentions the union of koiches or makif or poshut. Koich or poshut. The union from or poshut we discussed and we explained it quite extensively. What is oil poshut? The muscle for the oil poshut that we gave was, in contrast to oil that is a functional oil, the muscle that we gave is the effect on a person of ownership of a home or a rental of a home. Rental also provides for all the services that a person needs from a home.
Sorry. Just to get situated, the home, the rental, there's the ownership, and before that, all pashut. These came out of our main topic, which is, we came into this because we were talking about...
The main topic is, what is the oneg aspect? Why is the oneg aspect have that effect? What's the difference? This is oneg that is the background of the sechel.
It's the background of the sechel, and why does it have what effect?
Why does that justified to push out the ratzon or bring out the ratzon?
Okay, and to look at that, we're talking about or pashut and ownership and rental.
Yeah, we are, please, this is a morsel from there to explain the difference between the oil hasechel the way it is in sechel versus the oil hasechel as it is in the oneg. We went back to the morsel that we had regarding the oil pashut.
Or sechel as it is in sechel versus how it is in oneg.
You got it clear now?
Again, what?
It's not structured. It's just
forget the structure, but just what did we just say? There are two kinds. There's or by sechel and or by oneg.
We said way back when that the ratzon is not a koyach that can be mislabish in kelim.
Yeah.
And in there there are no differences in different madrigas.
Okay.
And therefore the only way to describe the ratzon is koyach va'oyer poshut.
Okay.
So we try to put that in perspective. What is a koyach va'oyer poshut? What is the difference between oyer poshut, koyach va'oyer poshut, and a regular structured koyach? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we give the motion for that. The motion for that was the difference between a rental home or an owned home.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
And we explained. In a rental home, you may rent the Empire State Building. But there, each part of the Empire State Building where you have jurisdiction is an additional jurisdiction. There is no overall effect, overall ownership. Each one is a separate piece. Whereas in ownership, one ownership, that encompasses the entire edifice. Owning this room and this room and this room, it does not is not distinguishable. Because ownership is of a super quality. It's super to the practical use of the entities. Ownership is a divine gift. You cannot create ownership from a worldly development. So ownership, no matter how big the edifice is and how small the person is, if he owns it, a baby can own a house, an Empire State Building. It's a completely different concept. Okay. Having said that, what does this expose us to? It exposes us to the concept that there could be one single point that knows no bounds. It does not really surround everything. It's automatically everywhere. The baby can own the house. The baby doesn't even know what it means to own. But halachically, he can own the house and every detail of it. I'll get it. So it's coming from a different level and therefore it has a different effect. This is the principle of a makif having an effect on the pnimi. When things come through a pnimi, everything is an add-on, is an additional presence. When it comes inside the makif, there is no additional. The power of the makif brings out everything. The power of the ratzon brings everything out. So now coming back to the point which we started discussing just now, he said the sechel has an effect on the ratzon. So the REBBE says no, it's not the sechel. It is the oneg that's behind the sechel. What's the difference? Please listen. The sechel has a tremendous effect. Because when one understands something, with all its ramifications, all the detail, it gives him a very good feeling. In other words, he's got a complete perspective. He's got all that there is, he has already clarified, and he has a complete view of what this is about, and what is contained in it. This wholeness, one would think that this wholeness, this is what gives him a sense of ratzon, of well-being. He is, so to speak, he's in his own realm, in his own environment. Wherever he turns, he identifies, he can recognize this piece. He feels comfortable in it. So therefore he feels merutza, because wherever he turns, he's at home. So the REBBE says, that would seem that way, but that's not really what it is. It's not the sichli element. It is not defined because everything that he sees, he can understand and relate to it. The real reason that he's marutza is because is the oneg that comes that is the background of the sechel. What's the difference? Why the oneg can justify the bringing out the ratzon and the sechel that is all encompassing and that cannot? For this we gave the reason, the marshal of ownership of a home and the rental of a home. Rental of a home is practically speaking is identical to ownership, but it's a fundamental difference. If a person rents a home, he is able to use every part of the home. When a person owns a home, and he also able to, how does a person feel in an owned home or in a rented home? Even though he can go any place in this rented home, he is a stranger everywhere that he goes. But in owned, he's at home everywhere. Completely different experience. This feeling at home, to be able to orient yourself and know what this room is about, what this room is about, is wonderful. But it doesn't bring out the oneg, the ratzon. It doesn't give a person a sense of wholeness. Because each room is a separate entity. Whereas if he owns it, then he has a sense of wholeness. There is no strange places here. Not places that I don't know about. You can know about everything, but it should still be a strange place. But here in ownership, there is no strange place. Everything is me. It's true to me. It's true to the reality of my ownership. Similarly, in the sechel, a sechel, as we said, is actually draws upon the oneg. Oneg is what the sechel is trying to understand. What's the truth behind the sechel? So we can understand it with all kinds of different explanations of the sechel, and ultimately everything fits together, everything's perfect. As long as it is based on sechel, it is wholeness, it is whole, and he feels comfortable in the entire sechel. But there's a whole multitude of different points. And every point that he looks at is a separate point. When the oneg behind the sechel comes forth, then he sees only one point. The reality behind of this whole sechel. When he gets to that point, yes, that is instrumental to make him a sense of ratzon. He feels perfectly comfortable here. Not because he knows all the answers. He is in his own environment. This is what happens when the oneg of the sechel is misgal. Sechel is drawn from the oneg, but sechel draws it in piecemeal. Ultimately, when he gets to the depth of it, then he gets to the depth of the oneg itself, and that is when when it becomes marutza, when then affect the ratzon. Because at this point, the sechel is not a structure of many details perfectly understood. Rather, it becomes one single, simple truth. Okay? This is why we say bepashtus that sechel should affect the ratzon. That's not possible. But the oneg behind the sechel should affect the ratzon. That is bepashtus. That's no problem at all. Okay. So this explains how is it that through learning you can actually bring out the ratzon in Torah. It is not the sechel, but because you bring out the oneg behind the sechel. And the oneg is higher than the sechel, because it brings out the simple truth of it rather than the structured truth. Okay. So in Torah, the first section, the first top 10 lines on the section that begins with Dugma on the page 1. In Torah, we say that there is a difference between Pnimis HaTorah and Fintoin HaTorah, because Torah comes, as we explained, is mislabish in sechel. Comes with the sechel. Whereas the ratzon of mitzvahs has no distinction. There is no mitzvah that is more superior to another mitzvah. So let's start from that line again. The line begins with kuli, just above the line that begins with faculties. Masha'ein king ratzon. When the ratzon is different, not like in Torah, where there is a difference between the obligation of Bali Asokim, the obligation of Bali Ehel, and so forth. And different times are different. But the ratzon, the mitzvahs, ratzon that is expressed, that is the force behind mitzvahs. The ratzon itself does not allow for difference in madrigas. There is not a ratzon means the ratzon in between one mitzvah and another. There is not a difference between one mitzvah and another mitzvah. That's number one. That's the ratzon. That's the ratzon. Vegam, and then furthermore, as a result, the obligation that comes along from ratzon, why we have to fulfill and follow and obey the ratzon. His faculties. There is no his faculties. There's no difference. What ratzon you're talking about? To what extent he is obligated in this mitzvah? What extent he is obligated in this mitzvah? There's no difference. There's no difference between one mitzvah and another. There's no difference in the obligation that comes with it. The hainu. Okay, here's the catch it, the whole thing in the nekuda. The hainu, and that is lefi, because sheharatzon hu bechinas gilu atzmos. It is due to the fact that ratzon is the bechina, is the aspect. Ratzon is not a sichli element. Is not a structured element. It's not something that makes sense of itself, justifies itself. It is the bechina of Gilui Ha'atzmos, of the Gilui of Atzmos itself. Atzmos does not come in a justifying manner. Doesn't try to make sense of what it states, what it wants. This is the etzem reality itself, and the etzem reality. This itself is the justification for its presence. And therefore, and that explains why in ratzon There are no distinctions between higher madrigas, low madrigas, and so forth. More important, less important, because we're talking about bechinas gili hoatzmus. It's the bechina of gili hoatzmus, of revealing the etzem itself. So, I'd like to, I have your minute, explain these words, bechinas gili hoatzmus. After all, gili hoatzmus, but we have only one atzmus. How come we have 613 mitzvahs? What does it mean that mitzvahs as bechinas gili hoatzmus? And then, as we have pointed out many times, the word bechina is not used insignificant. This word bechina has a meaning. If this is gili hoatzmus, then you have to don't use the word bechina. It is gili hoatzmus. It points directly to the atzmus. Bechina's gili hoatzmus means it doesn't point to atzmus, but it qualifies as such. What's that mean? And ratzon also, we have many ratzons. There are many ratzons. So how is that gili hoatzmus? The question over here is not what the statement is and what the ratzon is expressing. The question over here is what initiated the ratzon. Where does it come from? How come he has the ratzon? What's the power behind the ratzon? That's the question. And not only the power behind the ratzon to hold the ratzon, but what's the power behind it that initiated, that forces it out? What makes it that there should be this ratzon? This is when we say this is called bechinas gili hoatzmus. Again, if we wanted to elaborate a little on it, it's like this. If a person is hungry and he wants to eat, that makes perfect good sense to us. He's hungry, so he wants to eat. But along with this wanting to eat, along with this desire to alleviate the pain of hunger, there's a broader effect of hunger. It is not just isolated to discomfort of hunger. The whole person is in a state of despondency. He loses a sense of self and self-respect. His whole person is compromised. A ratzon, even we know that, for example, mentioned hunger. There is a state of despondency, a state of depression, where a person is not bothered by the fact that he's hungry. I don't care, leave me alone. In other words, when a person has a full response to the fact that he's hungry, that itself is a statement that he has got a powerful ratzon, that he is well from a neshama perspective. So this Gilui HaRotzon, the force behind the Rotzon, this is the force of the etzem, of the reality of the etzem. Because and he is a real person, this is why anything that's lacking by him comes out with tremendous demand, tremendous force. And he will pursue it with all that he can. If a person becomes lackadaisical, one way or the other, it makes a difference. His ratzon is not activated. This is the meaning that this is Gilui Ho'atzmus. Ratzon is a Gilui of the power of the Etzem. Ratzon is not something that justifies itself. I want it because of this one. I want it because it's my thing and therefore I want it. That's why it says it's Gilui Ho'atzmus. It's a statement of the fact that there is an Etzem behind it. And because of that, Lochein, and so now we can finish the line. Therefore, Ein boy be'etzem his chalkos. That's why in his etzem, in the rotzin be'etzem, there is no his chalkos, because the whole rotzin is forced out by the etzem. And inside the etzem, there's no difference this rotzin or that rotzin. It doesn't have his chalkos in essence, and it does not express itself in his chalkos. He does not choose what he wants more than others. Okay, this kind of concludes this scene.